Warning: the following video discusses gaming on a Mac. Viewer discretion is advised. Some gaming enthusiasts may find this uncomfortable, unconventional, or even sacrilegious. Every platform deserves a chance to play. But you should probably just buy a PC. Before 2022, every computer I owned in my tech journey was a Mac. This is what Microsoft meant to me. Fast forward to 2026, and I'm no longer a permanent resident in Apple's walled garden. SteamOS and Windows 11 are now part of my daily routine. In a weird turn of events, PC component prices have skyrocketed toward Neptune, and Windows 11 seems to be imploding. Somehow the Mac has found itself in the spotlight, praised as incredible value in terms of performance per dollar. When I originally wrote the script, it wasn't under these new circumstances. It was meant for those who had already invested heavily in Apple Silicon and were looking to game despite its limitations. But now with people rushing to buy Macs, and with the Steam Deck temporarily discontinued, the conversation has shifted. You're even starting to see bold promises from companies like GameSir with their upcoming GameHub platform, claiming your Mac will be able to play your entire Steam library. On paper, that sounds incredibly promising, and I'll definitely be putting it to the test when it drops. But before buying into the hype, I wanted to see what Mac gaming actually looks like right now, in its current state. This is my 2021 MacBook Pro 16-inch, powered by the M1 Max chip with a 10-core CPU and a 32-core GPU. I configured it with 32 gigs of unified memory and 1 terabyte of storage. The display is a 16.2-inch Liquid Retina XDR with near 4K resolution and a max refresh rate of 120 Hz. But this is no longer Apple's top-tier machine. The new MacBook Pro with the M5 Pro and the M5 Max chip have just released, and reportedly, the M5 Max is up to 8 times more powerful than the M1 Max. That's honestly wild, especially considering this machine still feels fast today. It's been a dependable workhorse since the day I brought it home. Hats off to Apple because 5 years later, I still don't feel the need to replace it. However, gaming on a Mac has never been easy. If a popular game does come to the Mac, it's usually years later, and sometimes a neutered version compared to Windows. Over time, Apple has made it even harder with limited native support and compatibility. Even Valve eventually gave up after seeing their efforts go to waste. But that hasn't stopped the Mac gaming community from pushing past those barriers. When Apple moved Macs to Apple Silicon, it marked the end of Boot Camp, Apple's dual boot solution. Thanks to tools like Wine and Crossover, running Windows games on a Mac is still possible. They've expanded the playable library far beyond what Apple officially supports, including one of my favorites, Rocket League. And for those waiting on my 30-day challenge, I apologize for the delay. I've completed the challenge and I will share my thoughts later in the video. But with breakthroughs in Crossover and more AAA titles finally receiving a native Mac port, I decided to broaden the scope. That said, games with aggressive anti-cheat systems like Apex, Valorant, and Call of Duty still won't run. For this video, I'll be testing a mix of native Apple Silicon games and Windows titles running through Crossover. All of my testing has been done on the most up-to-date version of macOS, macOS 26, Tahoe. Emulation has also become quite popular, and even the cheapest Apple Silicon computer can run any emulator you can throw at it. But that won't be the focus of today's video. Let's start with what runs natively on macOS. 2 AAA single-player games that are readily available are Resident Evil 4 Remake and CyberPunk 2077. The easiest way to get started is through the App Store. When browsing, I noticed all the Resident Evil games showed a Get button instead of a price. Clicking it downloads the game for free. At first, I was a little thrown off. Is Resident Evil 4 Remake really free on the Mac? Well, it turns out Apple lets you play through the first chapter before requiring a purchase. Feels a lot like mobile gaming, where unlocking the base game is treated like a microtransaction. Not surprising since RE4 is also playable on iPhone. When I first launched RE4, I got an error saying the game wouldn't run without iCloud enabled. Apple claims this is for cloud saves, but this is a single-player game. I should be able to save locally without iCloud. After enabling it, I was finally able to play. The game ran quite well. I was able to play with decent frame rates at 1080p. The fans did spin up, but once I put in my AirPods, they faded into the background. The next AAA title I wanted to try was CyberPunk 2077. I've never played it before, mostly because of its disastrous launch and poor console optimization, but since the Phantom Liberty DLC, CD Projekt Red finally delivered the game people wanted, so I was excited to give it a go. You have 2 options for purchase, the App Store or Steam. Since I own a Steam Deck and a PC, buying it on Steam made more sense. And with Steam's seasonal sales, you're bound to find the game at a cheaper price than the App Store. On my M1 Max, the sweet spot was medium settings at 1080p. This allowed me to get a locked 60 FPS. Fun side note, even when running on battery, the performance stayed consistent. The fans did kick in about an hour into my gameplay. Graphically, medium settings won't blow you away. For example, if I were to walk to this ramen spot, the lanterns are noticeably low res compared to my RTX 4070, running the game at high to ultra settings. One nice detail is both Resident Evil and CyberPunk support DualSense's advanced haptic triggers. In CyberPunk especially, you can really feel the resistance when firing weapons, which really adds to the immersion. Since I was already perusing in the Steam Mac client, there were two indie games that had playable Mac versions, Tunic and The Witness, which ran flawlessly. If you stick solely to the App Store, indies like World of Goo or Palworld feel right at home. But the AAA side of the App Store, it's awkward, overpriced, and stuck in Apple's mobile-first mindset. I would always double check if the AAA game you want to play has a downloadable Mac version on Steam. But let's be honest, Steam on the Mac has always felt like leftovers. The biggest hits land on Windows first, and only a fraction ever get ported. Some games actually have their launchers outside of Steam and the App Store, like Minecraft. Others include League of Legends, World of Warcraft, and Diablo 3. Minecraft Java Edition is natively supported on Apple Silicon and runs as well as you'd expect. So yes, you can natively game on a Mac in 2026, but eventually you hit the wall. And that's where things get interesting. You really feel like you've unlocked another tier of Mac gaming with tools like Crossover or Whiskey. When you combine that with the Heroic Launcher, which allows you to run games from Epic Games, GOG, and Amazon Prime Gaming, you can use any one translation layer, including Apple's Game Porting Toolkit. And the results will surprise you. Rocket League, which Epic abandoned on the Mac, runs great here. With my settings, I was able to get a stable 140 FPS at 1440p. Like with CyberPunk, Apple Silicon's performance consistency on battery is impressive. Playing a game being translated like this at such high frame rates, with barely any fan noise, this actually feels revolutionary. Once I was able to get Rocket League's mod client Bakizmod up and running, the result was a near perfect recreation of how Rocket League plays on my Windows PC. One thing with translation though is shaders don't preload, so you will occasionally get stuttering when a new asset appears on the screen. The longer you play, the less prevalent it becomes. As long as my FPS was higher than my screen's refresh rate, it was easy to forget. The MacBook Pro screen, while great for content consumption with decent contrast despite not being OLED, has mediocre response times compared to other laptops I've used. It's not noticeable in single-player games, but you definitely feel the latency in competitive games that require quick response times. For those coming from my macOS Bakizmod installation guide, yes, this can be your alternative to ranking up in Rocket League without buying a PC. If you already own a Silicon Mac, I do recommend having at least 16 gigs of RAM and preferably an M2 or above, especially if you plan to install Bakizmod. It's confirmed that in April of 2026, Easy Anti-Cheat is going to be required to play Rocket League online. They've stated that platforms like Linux and the Steam Deck will still be able to play the game, so hopefully this doesn't affect macOS. I will be making an updated installation guide for Rocket League and Bakizmod when that drops. So get subscribed. I am happy to report though that my Duos partner has been running Rocket League only on his M4 Max MacBook Pro and was able to achieve Grand Champ 1 for the very first time back in Season 19. So for anyone who doubted whether playing Rocket League on macOS is competitively viable, here's a success story. I should note that if you do plan on buying items from the item shop, you won't be able to add credits when using Heroic. If I only wanted to play Rocket League on this MacBook Pro, I really can't complain. Other than no access to the item shop, this does everything I need. So why haven't I sold my Asus Zephyrus G14? The truth is, after 30 days of only using the MacBook Pro, I noticed the first 2 hours feels great, but after a while, performance starts to fluctuate. I'm quite sensitive to microstutter, and in key moments, since I do have a PC, I'd rather just rank up on that. It could be that macOS Tahoe demands more resources than its predecessor, so your performance may vary. It's a real shame because one thing Apple devices are underrated for is their robust Wi-Fi cards, which make them competitively viable from a network standpoint. My G14 in comparison occasionally has issues when playing competitive games on Wi-Fi. You can also use the Windows version of Steam through Crossover. The client itself will run choppier than the Mac version, but now you have access to your entire Windows library. Competitive staples like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Marvel's Rival are playable here. For Counter-Strike 2, I played on low settings at 1440p and I was barely hitting 60 FPS. I'm pretty bad at Counter-Strike, so overall, I'll say this is playable for casual players. With Crossover 26, you gain access to heavyweights like Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us Part 1, and the Dead Space remake. The list grows with every crossover update. I also tried Titanfall 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Need for Speed Heat, games that EA did not have the time or budget to port to macOS, but now they are playable with Crossover. That said, Crossover is not perfect, and no matter how small the game, there's always a catch. You'll inevitably run into microstutters. Also, if you are playing your Steam library through the Windows version of Steam, you might hit the same issue I did, where Time Machine will interfere with how Steam updates your available storage after uninstalling a game. I also revisited some 7th Gen classics that have been long locked out of the Mac: Skyrim, Black Ops 1, and Dead Space 2. Your mileage may vary, but for me, all three were nearly unplayable. These are games that I had no problem revisiting on the Steam Deck. This made me appreciate Proton on Linux even more. As expected, Crossover is not free, and there is a free alternative, Whiskey. Whiskey works really well, and most games I tried will run on Whiskey, but the software is no longer being updated. There are plenty of ways to get discounted codes for Crossover, and I'll place the most popular one in the description. And here's the key point: none of this is Apple's doing. These are games that are not supposed to run on the Mac, but thanks to Crossover, Heroic, and an active community of tinkerers, they now do. While doing this challenge, I kept thinking about the old me, the one who gamed on a Mac, when dual booting Windows was still an option. Even back then, gaming on a Mac wasn't plug and play, and today I'd argue it still isn't plug and play. Crossover is an incredible tool, but for first-time users, it can feel overwhelming. Now with macOS 28 on the way, the Mac is reaching its final form, shedding Rosetta and x86 compatibility once and for all. And what does that mean? Well, it means that Apple is making it harder for gamers to game on their platform yet again. Sure, we finally got CyberPunk 2077 on a Mac. And to be fair, the Game Porting Toolkit was never designed for end users. It's a dev tool. But with Apple's tiny gaming user base, will developers even bother if the payoff isn't there? Look at Valve. They proved that if you do the heavy lifting for developers, they'll believe in the platform. Proton gave SteamOS legitimacy, and now studios optimize for Steam Deck because they know it won't be a wasted effort. If Apple took the same approach, I believe more developers would stop ignoring the Mac. But here's the bigger question. With global RAM shortages driving hardware prices up, and Valve's upcoming Steam machine potentially launching at a premium because of it, the barrier to entry for PC gaming keeps climbing. For the first time in years, Apple's in a position where the Mac could genuinely carve out a meaningful piece of the gaming market. The hardware is powerful, the performance per watt is impressive, and compared to building a high-end PC right now, it almost looks reasonable. The opportunity is there, but will Apple let the Mac become an open gaming platform, or keep it tethered to the same closed iPhone-style gaming model that prioritizes App Store control over player freedom? And I think we all know why they won't go with the former. Money. Apple's a $1 trillion company for a reason. The success of iPhone gaming gives them zero incentive to let Mac users game freely. Even when porting games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, the purchase model mirrors mobile gaming, free to download, with content locked behind a paywall. The Game Porting Toolkit was always just a stepping stone to Apple's real goal, selling games through the App Store. And yet, as I sit here in Apple's walled garden, I can't help but notice the irony. The Mac has always been Apple's most open device, despite their constant attempts to simplify and lock it down like their other devices. Thankfully, there will always be rebels, code weavers, gamester, indie developers, and passionate communities, keeping Mac gaming alive.